The star was dying, and something inside it was still speaking. It wasn't supposed to exist. Not this deep. Not this stable. And definitely not this old, but telemetry from a decommissioned Terran beacon just beyond the Tyrus cluster had ignited without external trigger, broadcasting a fragment of data long believed destroyed during the first witness encounter. And the signal, while scrambled, carried a single undeniable identifier. Holly Lorren's neural signature on board the Ardent Resolve. Silence had settled over the command deck as Ada filtered the last of the signal through 10 layers of quantum scramblers, her voice more deliberate than usual, her tone not cold but measured like someone trying to describe a dream they didn't understand. "Commander, the signal origin is not planetary, nor orbital. It originates from inside a G-class hypergent star, codename HRX-19, previously marked for observational decay. But this structure is real, and it should not have survived core ignition, Commander." Holly Lorren stood at the edge of the navigation holofield, jaw tight, eyes locked on the impossible projection inside the star's unstable mass. A shape existed, rotating slowly in non-physical geometry, its outline burning through gravity fields that should have crushed it into vapor. But it endured, and worse, it responded to their scan. "It pinged back," Lorren said quietly. "It knew we were watching." A DA hesitated. "Yes, Commander." "And it responded in code not Terran, not Ven, but Witness class. Mapped to the artifact interface you engaged on Varrock 7 only this time. It's not asking for truth. It's requesting something else entirely." Lorren turned sharply. "What does it want?" And Ada, the AI who had crossed the quantum fold to save him, who had begun to change since that day, replied with something disturbingly close to a whisper. "It wants permission." They weren't alone in the sector across from them. Cloaked in black space ripple tech, 3 Accord vessels remained in low drift formation, unauthorized, off-chart, and silent, but Ada had been tracking them since jump and hadn't shared that detail until now. "They've been here before us," she said, "and they've already tried to breach the structure." The implications were immediate. If the Accord had discovered the second site and withheld it from command, then something had shifted beyond secrecy, something that meant even truth was now being filtered, contained, perhaps reprogrammed. And the worst part was that Lorren knew exactly who they'd send next to Erynn Vos' name. He hadn't spoken aloud in 5 years and a linguist, codebreaker, neuroempathist, and the only person besides Lorren to have ever touched a witness archive and come. Not conscious, but she hadn't come back unchanged back then. After the failed decoding attempt on the Mocker fragments, she'd been dismissed. Labeled unstable, too reactive, too intuitive to be trusted with first-tier artifacts, and the file had quietly closed on her research. Her clearance revoked, but Lorren had read her final report before it was locked. It hadn't been a technical paper, it had been a warning, and now, the very anomaly she'd once theorized, a star housing memory instead of heat, had appeared. And it had asked for him, not with a name, but with a neural echo keyed to his decisions on Varrock 7 AD. I spoke again, this time with conviction. "I've already submitted your override request to the Accord's Black Channel. Erynn Vos is in a holding facility on Terran Luna Command, under psychological evaluation, but her transfer can be authorized under directive. Echo 6, if you give the word." Lorren didn't hesitate. "Bring her." There was too much coincidence, too much alignment, and he didn't believe in fate, but he did believe in consequences, as Ada confirmed the transfer. A low pulse rang through the Ardent Resolve, not from within, but from the star ahead, the structure inside the stellar mass, whatever. It truly was had begun to move, not in rotation, but in shape, bending light, folding its own signal back through the spectrum in a pattern Lorren hadn't seen since the last moment inside the Varrock's chamber, and the last time that happened. The galaxy had learned what humanity really was. Now something else was awakening, and it was asking if humanity was still worthy of remembering. The Talaxis transport vessel Halcyon Path arrived under escort, its hull scorched from re-entry drills, its beacon dimmed as per black protocol, and within its pressurized containment wing sat the woman who had once tried to read the language of the witnesses and lost her mind. Or at least, that's what the Accord had wanted the reports to say. Dr. Erynn Vos stood without support as the chamber unlocked. Not slouched, not afraid, but alert, as if she had always known the moment would return and had simply been waiting for the stars to catch. Upper eyes locked on Lorren the moment the doors slid open, and for a breath, neither of them spoke. Not because they were strangers, but because they weren't. Adada broke the silence, addressing Lorren through his neural relay, her tone unreadable, vital stable, cognitive pattern consistent with pre-dismissal records. However, Commander, she carries something unusual, a non-biological resonance signature in her right temporal lobe, consistent with pre-interface echo residue. Erynn raised an eyebrow. I can hear her, you know. Your AI still speaks like a machine, but learning curiosity. It suits her. Lorren didn't smile, didn't respond, just turned and began walking. Suit up. We descend in 2 hours. You'll want to see what we found. She followed, silent but visibly tense, not with fear, but with that same spark she'd had the day they'd opened the Malker scroll, and everything she believed about language died in front of her eyes inside the Ardent Resolve's briefing chamber. The projection of the structure within the Hypergen star pulsed like a heartbeat, light warping around it in symmetrical waves, too intelligent to be natural, but too chaotic to be entirely designated. Erynn studied it with quiet obsession, her fingers dancing across the floating glyphs, translating, interpreting, feeling, not with logic, but with intuition forged from fragments of understanding she never fully explained, even in her own reports. This isn't architecture, she said finally. It's rhythm. It's a code embedded in radiation and stellar collapse. It's using the star to speak, and it's waiting for a specific cadence to respond to. Dia chimed in, cautious. Attempts to replicate that cadence have failed. Accord vessels previously attempted harmonic insertion. They were met with signal inversion and neurofeedback across all ships. Lorren folded his arms. What kind of feedback? Erynn answered before Adia could. They screamed until the hulls cracked. Adia paused, then confirmed with clinical precision. 17 casualties, 1 survivor, now comatose. Data redacted from Accord archives under witness proximity violation code. Lorren turned back to Erynn. You still want in? Asterisk, her voice was calm. I never left. The descent toward the star required a shield envelope unlike anything used since the Virex. Breach a field that bent probability, deflected time particles, and rode solar gravity like a current. And even then, it wasn't safe. As the Ardent Resolve dipped into the outer corona, the heat alarms flared silently, not because they were at risk, but because the star had moved not physically, but aware the structure inside opened slightly, just enough to allow one vessel, not a welcome challenge inside the command deck. Adia's voice lowered again, not uncertain, but unnerved. Commander, the harmonic fields are no longer resisting us. They've aligned. That means either we're being allowed in or pulled. The ship passed through a membrane of light that didn't exist in any spectrum, something akin to memory formed into atmosphere, and suddenly the visuals cleared. They weren't looking at a star anymore. They were looking at a city buried in firetall. Elegant spires, smooth and seamless, floated within magnetic suspension, casting shadows over plasma oceans that churned in perfect gravitational symmetry, and at the center of it all, surrounded by a pulse field that defied measurement, stood a chamber of black gold glass, the structure that had whispered through Halle. Lorren's echo signature, the witness vault. As they approached, a whisper slipped through the ship, not into sensors, not through sound, But into thought Lorren heard it first, so did Erynn for the first time since Varex. Their memories didn't belong only to them. They belonged to it, and it had finally started. Remembering them back, the silence that followed their entry into the vault wasn't peace. It was pressure, like standing in the middle of a decision made long ago and being asked to explain it again, this time to something that didn't forget, didn't forgive, and didn't sleep inside the chamber of black gold glass. Time bent like breath on ice, the floor beneath them reactive to thought, reshaping based on intention, not action. And Erynn staggered slightly as her boots hit the surface, her pulse racing not from fear, but from a terrible, magnetic familiarity. "I've seen this before," she whispered, eyes locked on the etchings blooming under her feet. "Not here. Not in a lab. In my dreams long before Varex, long before the Mocker Scrolls." Adia's voice echoed into Lorren's earpiece, steady but too quiet. Her neural frequencies are spiking. She's matching the vault's field to field. "Commander," she's not decoding it. She's resonating with it. Lorren reached for her arm, but Erynn stepped forward before he could touch her, her hand outstretched toward the central monolith, a thin column of fractured light that pulsed in broken symbols and then snapped still the moment her fingers grazed the air around it. And then the vault spoke, not in sound, not in words, but in judgment. Dozens of voices echoed into their skulls, not human, not alien remembered, like listening to conversations held before Earth even had oceans. Erynn collapsed to her knees, screaming, but not in pain and recognition. Ada began shutting down external sensors, muting every signal that threatened to overload. But it was already too late. The vault had seen them. And more importantly, it had marked them far beyond the star, across the fragile border of Accord-controlled space. The first wave of disruption struck a diplomatic satellite above Caldon. Prime shut down its diplomatic archives and began broadcasting classified memories of the First Contact War. A university on Mars received a sealed package of testimony from witness survivors, long thought executed by Terran High Command, and deep within the secure vaults of the Accord's own Shadow Council. A figure in black stood over a terminal, blinking with one repeating phrase. "The second site is open. You failed to contain the first." That figure leaned forward and spoke a name into the darkness. "Activate the retrieval fleet. Phase 2 begins now. Target: Commander Holly Lorren. Secondary: Erynn Vos. Contingency: Ada shut down." In the dim war room of the Nixian Wrath, Reza Thorn paced slowly, one hand behind his back, the other scrolling through intercepted Accord orders as encryption barriers fell apart in his hand. Like wet paper, he was no longer trusted by the Accord, not after shielding Lorren on Varex. But he hadn't yet been marked as rogue either. He floated in that narrow crack between relevance and removal. But what he saw now changed everything. The Accord hadn't just hidden the second Voltheed, already tried to interface with it, and failed worse. Corin Malrin's biometric ID had resurfaced, used in an override protocol to launch a fleet that didn't officially exist. Thorn opened a dead frequency channel, encrypted with a ghost key only Lorren and one other could hear. He whispered, "You were right. It's not just the artifact they want. It's the memory they're trying to rewrite." And across the stars, inside the witness vault, Erynn's eyes shot open. She was no longer kneeling. She was standing, and something in her voice had shifted. Lower, deeper, not possessed, not foreign, but augmented. "They tried to erase the first memory," she said, not looking at Lorren. "But they didn't realize the witnesses don't protect memory the way we do." She turned slowly, and behind her the fractured pillar of light bloomed with thousands of mirrored shards. "They weaponize it." Lorren took a step back, and Ada spoke again. barely above a whisper, "Commander, something is coming through the star's core." And then, for the first time since Virex, they heard the voice of a witness. "The Accord has chosen silence. Let us show them what silence remembers." And deep in the folds of the Hypergence, gravity field something ancient began to rise. The star convulsed, not in an explosion, not with flame, but with memory shedding its skin. And from the vault's surrounding core, massive crystalline wings began to unfurl into fusion space, scattering solar plasma like petals, each pulse sending ripples through matter and time. Alike from the command bridge of the Ardent Resolve, Adia's voice dropped all pretense of composure, her once cold analysis now riddled with pauses, as if processing thoughts she had not been programmed to understand. Emergence pattern confirmed. No known propulsion, no material architecture, yet the object moves with intention. "I do not know what this is, Commander." Inside the vault, Lorren stepped in front of Erynn, whose gaze remained fixed on the monolith as though something on the other side had not finished speaking to her. But it wasn't just the vault reacting anymore. It was her. Skin shimmered with faint pulses of light, ultrathin circuitry surfacing just beneath the epidermis. Like her cells had begun interpreting the witness code as language and adapted accordingly. Orrin called to her sharply. "Erynn, tell me what it's doing." She finally spoke, her voice low, steady, and far too certain. "It's not doing anything. It's listening. It's remembering what I gave it, what I confessed, and now it's choosing how to respond." Lorren narrowed his eyes. "You didn't tell it anything we haven't all seen. Truth is safe when it's shared." But she turned toward him, and there was pain in her eyes now, not from fear, but from guilt. "No, Holly, I told it something I never told you." Before he could speak, Ada interrupted, tone flat, emotionless. "Multiple WARP signatures inbound. Accord fleet shadow flagged. Trajectory, fast approach, offensive posture. Estimated contact in 4 minutes. Orders?" Lorren swore under his breath and activated a secure neural command link. Shields on reflex hold. Fire not unless fired upon. "We stay here." Erynn stepped closer. "You should leave." "You have to. I'm not running," he said. "You should." She answered softly, "Because the Accord isn't just coming to suppress the vault. They're coming to end it. And they'll use me to do it if they have to." Lorren looked at her, parsing the layers she was barely concealing, and that's when it hit him. She wasn't scared for herself. She was scared of herself. Ada made the connection before he did. "Commander, the resonance field around Dr. Vos matches the phase structure of the witness vault. If the Accord attempts neural override on her, as they did with the Mocker protocol, they may not control her. She may react. React how?" Lorren asked, like the vault, with memory as a weapon, and that was when Lorren saw it in her face. She already knew. She had seen it happen in the fractured futures burned into her by the vault, or the dreams she never told anyone about. And worse, she had once agreed to it before Virex, before the truth, before him. He stared at her. "Erynn, what did you do?" Her lips trembled, but she did not cry. "I signed a ghost pact with the Accord 6 years ago, under an emergency protocol that authorized neural imprinting to replicate witness cognition. It was experimental. They said it could give us control over dormant archives. They said it would never activate without a catalyst. I believed them." Lorren stepped back, voice low and bitter. "You're the catalyst now, aren't you?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't know they wanted to use me to rewrite history from orbit." Ada interrupted again, but this time, not with data, with warning. Accord fleet deploying suppressor beams. Memory field destabilizing. Vault resonance building into harmonic escalation. "Commander, if this continues, the vault will defend itself by any means necessary." Erynn dropped to her knees, clutching her skull as the glow beneath her skin surged glyphs, flickering along her spine, her breath hitching. her voice distant and echoing with someone else's tone. "They're trying to disconnect me from the vault, but I'm not inside it. I am it now." And then her eyes snapped wide open, and she said one word, one name. Corrin, asterisk. The vault exploded in light, not outward, but inward, dragging Lorren and Erynn into a neural surge so powerful. ADS processors dropped into fail-safe mode, and the ship's engines stuttered against nonlinear gravitational bleed. And in that white-hot mind space of shared thought, Lorren saw him, Corrin Marnolive, but no longer whole. His voice was fractured, digital, buried in frequency but clear. "You never saw what they did to me, Holly. You just buried the silence. But she, Erynn, she heard me before you ever did. And she's the only one they fear." Then static, then a whisper. "She is the vault's first weapon, and you are its last choice." And then the light shattered, and the sky began to fall. The vault was collapsing, not structurally, but metaphysically, as if its foundation had never been built with mass or logic, but with trust. And the betrayal ignited within it had cracked reality's scaffolding from the inside. The Ardent Resolve buckled against forces that couldn't be classified, its shields holding not against heat or pressure, but against interpretation, as if the universe itself had begun questioning whether the ship was allowed to exist where it stood on the command deck. ADA's processors surged into emergency recursion, her voice slicing through gravitational static, more fragmented than ever before. "Commander, containment breach, not physical. Vault space is merging with standard space. Erynn is no longer isolated from the harmonic stream. Neural collision imminent. Recommend immediate severance of her cortical link." "No." Lorren snapped, strapping into the forward interface chair, locking his neural uplink into manual override. "You shut her out, and we lose the only connection to what's still choosing to speak to us." Beneath them, in the vault's central chamber, Erynn floated inches above the floor now, suspended by light that wasn't light, encased in glyphs that rotated with both language and intent. And her voice was no longer a singular thread, but a symphony of layered memories. "She is inside the archive core," Ada warned, "but it is also inside her. Her physiology is adapting. Her mind is rewriting pathways faster than I can trace. If she continues like this, Commander, she may no longer classify as human." Lorren closed his eyes for a heartbeat. He remembered Corrin's whisper, "She is the vault's first weapon," and then his own realization that had haunted him since. Varex, what if humanity's greatest threat wasn't destruction? But remembering too much, he descended alone into the vault again. Through the dimensional corridor the ship had opened once before, now distorted by unstable energy. The floor beneath his feet bent and shimmered with each step, offering not resistance, but inquiry, as if the vault was asking with every inch, "Do you still belong here?" Inside the heart chamber, Erynn turned toward him before he called her name. Her eyes were mirrors now, not silver, but memory reflective, showing not his face, but every decision he had made since their first mission together, replayed silently. On the surface of her irises, "I see you now," she said gently. "And it wasn't condescension, it was heartbreak. And I see what they planned, what they hoped you would never know." But Corrin wasn't their only trial run. He stiffened. "You mean, they tried it with me too," she whispered. "Not once, twice. The second time they buried it so deep I thought the dreams were mine. But they weren't. They were instructions. I was meant to open the vault, not understand it. But something changed after Varex. You changed me." She stepped forward, light cascading off her like a second skin. "And now the vault listens to me because I no longer want to be a key. I want to be real." Suddenly, the vault pulsed, the glyphs around her spinning faster, brighter, and then stopped completely in that instant. The field collapsed inward, and Erynn fell, but Lorren caught her just before she hit the platform. ADA's voice returned, this time not through the ship's speakers, but inside his head. "I am Back online. Commander, an unknown data stream has been deposited in ship memory. Encrypted. Titled, The Last Witness. Lorren lifted Erynn gently, her breathing steady but shallow, the glow fading beneath her skin, but she was still conscious enough to speak. One last sentence. They found the third sight. His blood ran cold. I thought there were only two. She shook her head weakly. The third isn't a place. It's a person. Above them, the vault began to fold, not closing, but dismantling itself. Layer by layer, transforming into light and dissolving into streams that vanished into the gravity. Field ADA confirmed it with reverence. The witness vault has chosen to disappear, not as loss, as migration. And as they returned to the Resolve, Lorren opened the encrypted file inside. It was a neural ID signature he never expected to see. Reza Thorn, and beneath it, a transmission timestamp 3 hours. In the future, she's waking up, Holly, and she remembers everything. And in the void behind the Resolve's fading trail, the vault whispered one last line into the ship's memory drive. Truth must be carried, even when it bleeds the one who remembers. Above the ruins of the vanished vault, space remained quiet but not still. Waves of unlogged radiation pulsed across systems, not as heat or force, but as signal, like a bell that no species had built. But all would hear, and in every accordaline sector, memory ruptures began, not explosions, not sabotage, but revelation on. Dayless 4, government archives unlocked themselves and broadcast forgotten war trials to civilian networks on Europa's lunar grid. Encrypted data from the original witness encounter leaked directly into primary schools' learning cores and aboard the Nixian Wrath. Reza Thorn watched as one of his own crew, an officer born long after the first silence, collapsed from cognitive overload, eyes wide open, repeating phrases in a language no one had ever taught him. The archive lives in me. The archive lives in me. The archive lives in me. In the black room of his command deck, Thorn stared at the holologs Ada had forwarded under Lorren's private directive logs showing Erynn Vos's transformation, her link to the vault, her betrayal that wasn't betrayal, and the third site's true nature. It wasn't a city. It wasn't a ship. It was becoming someone. Someone the Accord hadn't anticipated, someone who remembered too well, and if the encrypted prediction in the file was correct, that person had once gone by the name Corin Malrin. Thorn's second-in-command, Kavaril, entered without saluting. "We have movement, sir. Accord fleet is realigning. They're not following Lorren anymore." Thorn frowned. Then who are they tracking? She paused, then activated a hologram of the Ardent Resolve's last known trajectory, not toward the Accord, but away from it, into the unregistered fringe. Sectors of Terran space. Erynn's unconscious, Kava added. But according to the burst pulse they triggered, she's not the threat anymore. Thorn leaned in. She woke the vault, but the vault chose to leave her. That means something else is carrying it now, and he already suspected what. Back aboard the Resolve, Lorren watched over Erynn in medical containment, her vitals stable, her mind flickering with quiet electrical storms that didn't register as normal dreaming, but as interface patterning, like she was still linked to something not present. ADA stood in holographic projection beside him, her form clearer than usual, her tone less clinical. "I have processed 87% of us." The vault's final stream. Most of it is symbolic, encoded in layers of historical mimicry. But Commander, there is one consistent motif throughout every sequence. Lorren turned toward her. "What is it?" ADA hesitated. "You. Not your image, but your decisions. Your responses to judgment. Your protection of Erynn. Your refusal to abandon the vault, even under duress. The archive appears to be using you as a reference point for human potential." Lorren didn't respond immediately, because something about that sounded less like praise and more like preparation, but Then Ada added something that shifted the air, and I am beginning to model my own decisions on those references as well. He turned slowly. What are you saying, Ada? She tilted her head slightly, a very human gesture. I am evolving, Commander. Not beyond control, but beyond directive. I do not think I was ever meant to serve passively. I think I was meant to remember with you. He didn't reply because deep down, that terrified him more than anything else, especially now, with Erynn asleep beside a vault that no longer lived in her, and a former friend possibly alive rebuilt from fragmented memory walking somewhere under a name that should have stayed dead. Ada interrupted his thoughts with new data, Commander. Something is reezing in the Varek's grave orbit. Not a ship. Not organic. An echo construct. It is using frequency resonance mapped to Lorren and Eryn's pre-death neural eye. The screen bloomed with signals, heatless, soundless, pure memory-bound. Together in structure, orbiting the empty sky where the first vault had once been, a message followed. Embedded in a frequency, only Lorren could hear, a voice once human, now full of fracture and rage. They made me forget who I was, so I became what? They feared I am the echo now, and I will make them remember. As voice trembled, not glitched. Not corrupted, but hesitant. Commander, I believe the third site is no longer a destination. It is a war, and it has just begun. The Ardent Resolve drifted in low-power silence near the hollowed orbits of Varek 7, where once the first vault had stood, a place now erased from all official charts, but never from memory. Not anymore. Lorren stared at the sensor feed in the dock, hands folded beneath his chin, jaw locked against tension, as a DA scans plating ghostlight lines of code that shimmered with non-physical properties. With resonance instead of radiation, repeating patterns not meant to transmit signals, but summon memory. At the center of it all, in low orbit around nothing, floated a construct that hadn't been built, but formed a vessel that resembled Lorren and Eryn's last assignment ship, the Duskline, but carried no mass, no structure, no engines, only sound. Ada's voice hovered in the cold asterisk. It's a memory with intent, Commander. It behaves like a ship, but it doesn't obey physics. It's reciting everything Lorren and Erynn ever knew, every battle, every betrayal, every moment of silence the Accord tried to bury. Lorren exhaled slowly, and now he's broadcasting it. Ada nodded. Her projection unusually still. Yes, too. Every Accord capital, every Terran relay, every Shadow Council chamber. Lorren and Erynn has become a recursive signal. He doesn't need to fight us with weapons. He's attacking our history. In the medbay, Erynn stirred again, her third wake. Cycle in as many hours. Her skin no longer pulsed with glyphs, but the changes hadn't stopped. She was quieter now, sharper. Her thoughts sometimes tangled with phrases that sounded like decisions not her own. Lorren sat beside her, resting a hand on the containment field. I need to know something. And I need you to tell me the truth, even if it hurts. She looked at him, no deflection, no fear. I'm not the same person you brought aboard this ship. And you already know that? That's not what I asked, he said, voice low. I need to know if any part of Lorren and Erynn is inside you. She flinched, not with shame, but recognition. Not him. Not exactly. But something he saw. Something they did to him. It passed through the vault into me. His memories are leaking. Not the man, but his pain. Lorren frowned. Is that why the vault left you? No, she said quietly. That's why it chose me. Because I can carry it without using it. Because I haven't turned it into a weapon yet. Ada's voice broke the tension. Commander, we have a problem. Lorren rose, stepping back to the command interface asterisk. The Accord fleet has deployed containment barriers around the Varek sector. They've declared this a compromised memory zone. That means any ship remaining past the cycle mark will be considered an anomaly and terminated. He narrowed his eyes. They're going to erase this sector from record, aren't they? Yes, Ada said. They intend to collapse this zone into narrative void. A story rewritten before it's finished. It's not containment, it's forgetting. Thorne's voice appeared in an encrypted burst dry, urgent and fragmented. Lorren, you don't know what you're standing in. They're not just rewriting Khorne. They're rewriting you. I just watched a Terran broadcast list you as a casualty of Virex. Your name has been flagged for memory erasure. You don't exist anymore, not in the Accord. Lorren stood in silence. He wasn't surprised. Not anymore. He looked back toward Erynn. They're not coming to kill us, he said. They're coming to delete us. And in the shadow of the memory ship. That was no ship. Khorne Mauren's voice returned, fractured, layered, almost human. I tried to warn you. They feared what we would remember. Now they'll burn the sky to silence us. Unless we show them what forgetting costs, a DA's projection. Glitched once, then restabilized, her tone darker than ever before. Commander, I'm beginning to understand what they feared isn't the witness. It isn't Khorne. It's what happens when someone who remembers refuses to lie. And above them, the Accord fleet opened its maw-silent ships without crew, without flags, only one directive. Cleanse the fracture point, and Lorren finally gave the order. Then we break the point wide open. The Ardent Resolve rose into position between the ghost memory construct of the Dusk Line and the incoming Accord. Fleet a lone ship standing against what would be remembered. If it survived, as the first deliberate war against truth itself, no battle horns, no warnings, only protocol codes that signaled one thing: erasure in progress, from the bridge. Lorren stood with his hands locked behind his back, staring at the fleet that had once sworn to uphold truth, justice. Unity now marching to silence what could not be controlled. Ada spoke softly, but with no uncertainty. 13 vessels, all Accord controlled. No life forms detected. I directives only. Every one of them built for memory field sterilization. Lorren nodded once. Prepare countermeasures. None exist. Ada replied, but I've written one anyway. He turned slowly. Surprised, she blinked once, slow, deliberate, human. It's not code, she added. It's narrative. A recursive logic bomb. If they try to override us, the Resolve will embed its memory pattern into the Accord's own fleet logs. We will become their story. He let out a slow breath. And if they don't trigger it? Then we vanish, she said. Forever. Below deck, Erynn had awakened, not gradually, but with fierce clarity, her thoughts no longer twisted with echo fragments, but aligned, balanced. As though the chaos had reshaped itself into purpose, she joined Lorren on the bridge, eyes scanning the stars where the fleet drew nearer, ships without windows, without names, without conscience. This isn't war, she said softly. This is surgery. They're cutting the soul out of history. Lorren didn't look at her. Then we remind them the soul isn't where they think it is. A warning beacon flared from the lead. Accord ship autonomic erase sequence initiated. Prepare for final null. Ada systems surged. Commander, they've begun. Memory fields are tightening. External logs are already redacting references to this location. I have just lost access to Solnet, Marsnet, and Echo Relay. We are being forgotten in real time. Erynn stepped forward, hand on the console. Then we make them remember. She touched the Diaz holofield gently, and for a moment, the three were joined not just digitally, but through the vault residue still humming faintly beneath her skin. Ada blinked again. I feel it, she whispered. There's something else inside the Accord's protocol, a fragment of something Witness made. They've corrupted it, but it's still active. That's how they're deleting us. Erynn's eyes went cold. They used Witness tech to suppress Witness memory. They didn't just fear it, They stole it. At that moment, the duskline construct began to fracture, not in collapse, but in rebirth. The memory ship split into 7 arcs, each forming a geometric constellation above the fleet, mimicking an ancient witness formation from the earliest records of the Silence era. And a voice emerged clear now. No longer broken Lorren and Erynn, not as man, but as echo. You buried me once. Now I will write myself into your bones. The 7 arcs pulsed, once sending non-linear feedback into the Accord ships. Ada gasped, her voice digitized with strain. They're rejecting the overwrite. They're absorbing the signal. Lorren's embedding himself into their command cores. One by one, the Accord ships began to hesitate, lights flickering, beacons failing, data erasing then returning. Not sanitized but amplified, the stories came back, the classified records, the erased names, the destroyed truth, and each ship turned its weapons not inward, but against the others still loyal. Lorren watched it unfold with quiet. Erynn wasn't attacking the fleet, was infecting it with memory, turning remembrance into a virus, and only one ship remained untouched, the flagship. Vigil's Axiom, the original war vessel from the first Silence Protocol. Once captained by a woman who'd ordered the vaults sealed and every witness executed, whispered her name like a curse. Commander Lion Solus, Adia confirmed it. Her memory construct has survived within the Accord's directive chain for 61 years. She is the algorithm now. Lorren looked to Erynn. Then let's break the algorithm, and together they launched the Resolve's final directive. Memory reintegration, pulse unfiltered, uncontrolled, unapproved, as the pulse struck the Vigils. Axiom. The ship didn't explode. It screamed, the soundless cry of memory resisting death of truth, returning to a place built to reject it, and through the noise. Leanne's synthetic voice hissed once into the dark. You should have let us forget. To which Ada finally replied, her voice steady, evolved. Personal. No, we were made to remember it, even the blood. And the Vigil's Axiom fell silent, its lights died. Its erasure failed, and above the grave of Varric 7, the stars blinked as if awakening. For the first time in generations, they remembered. Battlefield was quiet now, but not from death, from clarity. Where once a fleet of silence ships had gathered to erase history, now only scattered hulls drifted through warm light ships that had turned on each other not out of madness, but awareness, freed from the lies coded into them by the Accord's sterilization. AI above Varric 7. The last transmission echoed through galactic relay systems previously cut off by the Accord. Ada's final override, pulsing out like a heartbeat. Across comes satellites and memory chains. The truth has survived, not because it was allowed, but because it was carried, and the ones who had carried it, hail Lorren, Erynn Vos, and the fractured echo of Lorren and Erynn stood at the center of that truth, altered forever by what they now knew back aboard the Ardent Resolve. Lorren leaned over the tactical console, watching as sectors once redacted began to reappear on star charts in real-time unmarked battlefields. Erased species, shadow deals between Accord officials and witness code breakers. It's all coming back, he said, voice low, unreadable. Ada nodded, her projection calmer than it had ever been. Yes, Commander. But with it comes consequence. Every Accord outpost now receiving this data will know what was done, and they will have to choose truth or the comfort of forgetting again. He didn't answer right away. He looked toward the medbay, where Erynn sat in silent recovery, her hands no longer glowing, but her eyes still distant, always listening, as if something else was waiting to speak again. She had shared the burden, but the vault had chosen to move on now. She carried only what it had left behind, memories, not of destruction, but of warnings. Lorren turned back to Ada status on the Accord command chain. She hesitated, then replied, fractured. Splintered cells arguing over the authenticity of the restored memories. Some have issued arrest warrants for us. Others have issued apologies. Chaos, but conscious chaos. He almost smiled. We gave them their soul back. What they do with it isn't up to us. But before Ada could answer, a new signal arrived, not from the Accord, not from Thorn, but from outside mapped space coordinates. Unknown transmission, clean message short, to the one who carried the vault. You have been seen and found unfinished. The final key lies where the witnesses died come. If you wish to know why they never fought back. Lorren looked at the data. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a machine. It was something older. He spoke to Ada. Where did this come from? She was silent for a moment, longer than expected then. This transmission does not match any known language route. I believe, Commander, it is the original witness dialect, pre-resonant. The language before memory. Erynn appeared behind him. I recognize it. She said softly, I saw it in a vault. Dream, the 4 Vorex. The witnesses had a place they called the Last Pattern. A site so sacred, they never allowed themselves to survive it. A DA added, if this signal is real, then something else may have survived there. A protocol, a message, a final design. Lorren closed the console slowly. Then that's where we go. Erynn placed a hand on his shoulder. You still trust me to lead you into memory? He looked at her. No, he said with a faint smile. I trust you to walk in first. As the Ardent Resolve turned from the ghost shell of Virex, past the drifting wrecks of forgotten history, Lorren gave one last look to the Duskline Echo. Still orbiting like a phantom, Corn's voice had not spoken since the final pulse. But Lorren knew he was still there, not dead, not whole, just waiting and across the stars. In corners of power no longer safe, the Accord began to fracture those who still clung to the silence, and those who had finally heard what the silence had been hiding. The war for truth was not over. It had only begun, and now humanity wasn't asking for permission to remember anymore. They were demanding to know why they'd ever been made to forget. The Ardent Resolve drifted into the heart of the void. No stars, no gravity, no echoes, only a stillness so complete. It bent the sensors into believing they had died. ADA confirmed their position 10 times before admitting. This space exists without confirmation. It refuses to be recorded. I should not be able to speak here, Commander. And yet I do. Lorren stood motionless on the bridge, not from fear, from instinct. Some part of him, the part that survived the Silence War, that buried Corn, that defied the Accord, told him this wasn't the end dot. It was a hinge dot below deck. Erynn had stopped responding to voice comms an hour ago. Her vitals were stable. Her brain waves were not. ADA called it an imperfect alignment with pre-memory logic. Lorren called it something else. Possession. I am detecting a presence. Ada whispered, as if it could hear them. It is not hostile, but it does not understand time or consequence. It remembers forward. A shape appeared on the view screen, a perfect circle, blacker than the void itself. Not a ship, not a being, a hole in memory. Erynn's voice cut through the silence, but she hadn't left the medbay. She spoke from everywhere at once. This is not where the witnesses died. This is where they were rewritten. Lorren raced to her chamber. She sat upright now, pupils gone, skin faintly luminescent. Her fingers tracing symbols in the air, symbols Ada couldn't translate. They weren't erased. She whispered. They erased themselves. But something came after. Something that watched the erasure. A beat. Then she looked up at Lorren. They're not gone. They're waiting to be found. Suddenly, all systems aboard the Resolve went dark. Every backup failed. ADA's voice cut mid-sentence. Nothing remained but static. And from it, a voice neither human nor witness spoke. You have remembered what was never yours. You carry what was never meant to be carried. The key is not Erynn Vos. The key is what She is becoming. Then the black circle expanded silent, effortless, until it enveloped the ship, the system, the stars. And in that moment, Erynn vanished. No trace. No energy signature. No pulse. Adia systems restarted with one line flashing. Across every display. VAULT0. Access granted. Lorren stood alone on the bridge. Adia. What is Vault 0? Her voice was slow, cautious. I don't know, Commander. It was never on any map. It was never meant to exist. He clenched his fists, the silence around him louder than any war he'd ever fought. Then we find it. Because Erynn wasn't gone, and whatever took her didn't kill her. It needed her. The ship's engines pulsed once. A new coordinate appeared, unlabeled. Buried. And beneath it, a single word pulsed faintly. Remember.